job opportunities. I missed a lot of events and even family events because I was panicking. But no one really knew. I just had to make up excuses why I couldn't be in places. It was very challenging. But I got through it. And I got through it because I started discovering ways to feel good. And these ways that I'm going to talk about today, you've each got a list in front of you. These kind of lifestyle habits, or what I like to call the Calm toolkit. Each one of these things triggers a chemical response in our body. And this is really important for us to understand when we're dealing with stress and anxiety. Oftentimes we want to do things to take it away. So we can do positive things like jump rope, exercise, and we're going to talk about the positive things we can do in the toolkit, but sometimes we do other things to take it away. We might drink alcohol. I used a lot of alcohol to help calm myself down with anxiety. I didn't really want to, but I did because I knew if I had a glass of wine, I would be okay. So I used alcohol to calm me down. It was medicinally. Some people use drugs. Some people eat. Some people do other things that are destructive. Not wanting to be destructive, but trying to take away the feeling that they're having. And so the tendency, this is our fight or flight. We want to run away from the feelings. We want to run away from the anxiety and distress. And it's really easy to go for things like kind of the things that are a little bit not as healthy for us to take away the anxiety. Or what I'm presenting today too are the things that we can do that are positive and lifestyle changes that we can adapt to help us deal with stress and anxiety. And the more that we practice things when we're not anxious and stressed, the more easy it is to deal with anxiety and stress when it does arise. So, for instance, I would often drink alcohol when I was starting to feel I was anxious, and so I would have a glass of wine. And that was a quick solution. But it didn't take away the anxiety, and it wasn't really a habit that I wanted to have all the time because I felt anxious a lot. I certainly did not want to be drinking all the time. So it was kind of in extreme cases, I would use it that way. But that's not the way I wanted to really live my life. And I had a whole host of other habits, but I'm using that as a point that we can go in that direction. Or we might eat to make us feel better. It's okay to eat when we're hungry, but we can go to the point of using food or other substances to take us away from dealing with what we're feeling. So back to the list here that I presented, the Calm Lifestyle Toolkit. This is really what I've discovered over the years, the way that I've learned to manage my anxiety with, I put 7 categories. There are certainly more things that we can do, but I tried to put them into some lifestyle categories that we can use to shift behaviors. But what I wanted to say about, I was talking about alcohol, drugs, and food, and maybe the other thing, which we also can use, is we can hide in social media. And we're inundated with messages, we're inundated with news, we're inundated with images, which can cause stress and anxiety in and of itself. And it's also a way to avoid maybe other things. We can sit and scroll, and we're watching other people do things in their lives. But what are we actually doing in our own lives, right? So it's very, in general, social media is very passive. Even if we see cool recipes or workouts or whatever, we're just watching. But how many of us are actually doing something? So if you would add up the hours of your day that you're spending scrolling, it shifts our mental health, because we're also comparing ourselves constantly. Whether you think about it or not, you're comparing yourself. You're seeing all these perfect people doing all these perfect things. You're like, ooh, I wish I could do that, but I can't do that. Or wow, and it's amazing, but it's also, what is it doing for our health and well-being? Besides being exposed to images, we might have some inspiration. I hope that we also find inspiration and positive things in social media. But we have to think about the impact that is having, like how many hours of our day are spent passively watching, or we can choose to do something active with our lifestyles and adopt habits for ourselves that are going to increase our well-being and not detract from our well-being. It's a balance, but I want to suggest the Calm Lifestyle Toolkit as a way to enhance our well-being. So as I was mentioning, these 7 categories that I put all trigger our own chemicals inside our body. So just to revisit that, I was talking about the things that we can do to, alcohol, drugs, food, social media, other things that we can do to try to avoid or run or tapar in Spanish, cover up our anxiety or our feelings or our stress. We can trigger chemicals inside our own bodies. We're equipped. So alcohol calms you down and triggers serotonin and dopamine in the body. Social media is a huge trigger for dopamine, positive and negative, right? So there's a book out now called Dopamine Nation that came out in English, but it talks about dopamine addiction. Maybe we've heard about that. But we have dopamine in our body. We can trigger dopamine in our body besides ways from social media. We can trigger it in positive ways as well. Not that social media is bad. It's only a negative to our health and well-being when it consumes too much of our time and energy and makes us feel worse than better. But the point is that we are equipped, we have our own pharmacy within our bodies that we can trigger chemicals, the hormones and neurotransmitters to make ourselves feel good. So this is the really, really good news. We also have the power to change our thoughts and our thought patterns. So if anxiety is a thought loop, we have the power to change, and I'm going to talk about that, how we can change our thought patterns. And when we change our thought patterns, we start to trigger these chemicals in our bodies, the hormones and neurotransmitters that make us feel good. And so for me, when I started meditating, it was hugely comforting to know that I had the power to calm myself down. And the more I practiced meditation, the more calm I felt in my daily life. And if I did start to feel anxious, I remembered, I know I have a calm place inside. And so it was very helpful for me to start practicing meditation. Meditation triggers a whole host of beneficial chemicals. We know most of them: serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin, and then there are a whole host of other neurotransmitters that can be activated with the activities that I'm proposing in the toolkit. So let's talk about the toolkit a little bit. As long as we're talking about meditation, it's on the sheet in front of you. Feel free to take notes if you want to, or follow along. If not, just listen. So the first lifestyle tool that I propose is being. So being is what I'm alluding to with meditation, either formal meditation or not, just being with oneself. So this notion that we can unplug to plug in is really taking, even if you take 5 minutes of your day to not look at your phone, to simply close your eyes, not listen to music, and just really be present with yourself. You don't have to really think anything particular, but what is important and what you will notice when you go inside, and we're going to practice this in just a minute. When we go inside and we close our eyes and we really just try to be open to listening to the sounds around us and noticing our breath, for instance, and then notice what happens to your thoughts. So we're going to do a little exercise with just being. It's not a formal meditation. It's just a way for us to notice our thoughts, because when we start to observe our thoughts, you'll notice that your thoughts come and go. And if thoughts trigger anxiety, and we can notice when we're starting to have thoughts about anxiety and stress and the future, and what am I going to do? What's going to happen tomorrow? I know right now there's a lot of stress very present here in Argentina because things are changing and we've got a new system coming, and it can trigger a lot of stress because there's a lot of uncertainty. And not just here, all over the world these days, there's a lot of uncertainty. And we can go with the thoughts that say, oof, I don't know, or I'm worried about what's happening in this place and that place, and there are a number of things going on to worry about. But if we take the time to practice being with ourselves, those thoughts and events are going to continue whether we're worried about them or not. And so this is important to realize, that the thoughts trigger anxiety, but what we're thinking is or I want to just say, just thoughts. We can change those thoughts, and we have to understand that thoughts don't change the outside world. Thoughts change our health and well-being. And so if we change our health and well-being, we can change the outside world. But because we're worried about what's happening here or there, worry isn't going to change anything. It's just going to make us feel worse inside. But if we practice being and realize that those thoughts come and go, they come and go, they come and go, they're just thoughts. And what am I doing here right now? I'm sitting in this room enjoying a talk, or I'm sitting in my living room with my cat, or I'm in the park taking a walk. And that's really, those observations of the present moment are really important. So let's practice just for a few minutes, if everyone's willing, a little mini exercise, and I'll give you an introduction to how it works, and it's something that you could practice when you're home or you want to take a break from work, or as you mentioned earlier, you're having this feeling of, I need to get up and go. And one way of managing those feelings are to get up and go. Another way is just say, I'm just going to close my eyes and just let the thoughts come and go, but observe those thoughts as they come and go. What's making you feel like you want to get up and run? And just say, okay, thoughts come and go. I'm going to be right here and close my eyes. So let's try it. I'm going to grab my timer and let's just try for 3 minutes, okay? 3 minutes sometimes can feel like a long time if you're not used to it. Because really, 3 minutes is nothing, right? How many hours of the day do we spend scrolling? Does anyone sit down and they've already spent like a half an hour on the phone, or however much time first thing in the morning, and you're still in bed looking at us? It's like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm on the phone, right? It happens to all of us, or wherever you happen to be. So this is just 3 minutes. Let's put 3 minutes. Okay. So just sit calm, relax. Maybe raise your shoulders and let them fall. Raise your shoulders and let them fall. Sit comfortable. It's nothing to stress about. We're just going to